All right. So yeah, when I first saw this movie, In a Violent Nature, I immediately wanted to reach out, for an interview. It's just one of those films that kind of like caters to questions and you kind of want to know the man behind the mask ultimately. Then I was like, he's probably busy. I'm sure you're getting bombarded with requests, leading up to the release as well as right after the release. But then I noticed, I kept seeing you getting tagged in things, and we have multiple mutual friends, and so I was like, the writing's on the wall. I have to reach out. So before we get into the film, I want to ask about your relationship with Black Fawn. Working with that team, Chad Archibald, Benner. Some great people. Can you talk a little bit about working with them and maybe how they kind of got you to where you are?
Yeah, I've been friends with the Black Fawn boys since day one, since before Black Fawn even existed. So, um, Chad, and Gabriel Carrere, we all made a film together way back in the day called Desperate Souls. It was kind of our first feature experience doing it together. So, and then we've all kind of gone off, branched off, and done different things, and then we all kind of come back together and work together too. I'm actually going to a sneak peek of Chad's new film tonight, actually. So that's still how tight we are. Yeah. So I'm excited to do that. And yeah, we've done a bunch of films together. We've traveled a bunch and gone on many a crazy adventure. So yeah, those guys they're very tight and dear to my heart.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy their releases. Like they're jam-packed full of all those things that all of us fans know and love. And I got a chance to hang out and meet them and interview and watch a couple of their films in Dallas for Texas Frightmare. And ultimately we just kind of stayed in contact, and great people. I'm actually in Texas, but all of my family's in Canada, so it was really kind of cool to link up, ultimately.
Oh, right on. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Yeah. So just a little bit about me, but yeah, let's get into the film. Johnny is introduced as a seriously nasty new horror icon, and hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I really enjoyed seeing it from that perspective. How did you prepare for this role, and how did you kind of get in the mindset of menacing and a relentless killer?
Well, a lot of it was talking with Chris Nash ahead of time, just to kind of find exactly what the tone was, and he explained exactly how the perspective was going to be. We watched a few films to kind of get that across, and then also just knowing that Johnny had to sort of be an entry point for the audience too, to just know exactly what kind of film they were in. That he's a supernatural slasher, that he's come back from the dead. This possibly could even be like the second, third, fourth entry in like a storyline of films that have happened, sort of thing. So it was knowing that, and then I'm a huge horror and slasher fan going way back. So I've seen I almost every 80s slasher entry there is. So I was a big fan of certain people, certain performances that I tried to take little bits and pieces from, but we didn't want to copy any one specific thing and try to create something new. So there's homage and nods to some performances, like Kane Hodder, obviously CJ Graham, Nick Castle as the Shape in the original Halloween. There's a bunch, but it was kind of using that, and then also something else I did of myself to try and give it its own flavor too was watching a lot of animal attack videos, bears and wolves, and just seeing how their movements change so drastically and how they become this one thing that's at one with nature and just there, and then all of a sudden it's this terrible killing machine that you just don't want to be anywhere near. So those are sorry, those are a few things we did to find Johnny.
Gotcha. Yeah, you mentioned, watching films. Is that something you guys did together, or did you assign, like each of you kind of assign each other homework, like, hey, check out this performance or this scene? I was kind of curious as to how that all was mapped out.
Yeah, well, so we did meet up and watched a few films together. And Chris mentioned like the Gus Van Sant following films like Jerry and Elephant. And we watched, there's another British film called Elephant too. It's basically a following film. It's a series of vignettes where you're following a character who then commits a crime. Um, and then we watched another film called Angst, which is, I think it's German, and it has a perspective following around this insane killer who was just released from like a hospital, and it just follows him throughout the day, sort of thing. And it's dark, and it's extremely like art house and unique, and such a great film in itself. That kind of really gave me an idea as to like where we were going with this, and just how different expectation wise it was going to be. And then other than that, Chris kind of left it up to me to watch whatever I wanted slasher wise, and kind of left it open. And I watched certain films specifically to watch some kill scenes and to watch how, you know, the character movements and things. And then otherwise I just kind of watched it to get myself in like the headspace of being out in the woods. There were some like Just Before Dawn and The Final Terror, Madman, obviously The Burning, but there was a bunch that I tried to see. I tried to find two that I had never seen before. I came across Rituals, which I hadn't seen until, I mean, it was shortly before this film, but I absolutely loved it. So I revisited that, and we were actually shooting in the same area that film was shot in way back.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was just, yeah, it's kind of just immersing myself in as much of it as possible, and just kind of just knowing the moments, that so that I wasn't copying any specific thing, so that I could, you know, draw from certain things, but then kind of do it my own way.
Yeah, it definitely felt like unique. I mean, there are obvious nods, like you can't escape that, but it definitely, you know, there is your spin on it, which I thought was really cool. Um, like how what was your initial response to like the narrative choice? Like how when this was brought to you, or once you became involved, was it already decided that this was the perspective, number one, and then ultimately, like, how did you react to like this is something we're going to do?
Yeah, that was like the genesis of the idea, is from what I know, that Chris was kind of throwing around this idea. They were on another shoot for another film, and he brought up like, what would you ever watch a, you know, basically like a hangout film with a slasher killer? You just follow him, and it's you're just with him for the day, and you're with him in between moments, so you see everything that happens. And I know him and the producers were kind of just joking about it, and Peter Kaplowski was kind of like, you know, that's not a bad idea. So I think Chris just kind of jumped. He's like, if one person's interested in it, I want to just kind of see where this idea might go. So that was already, I don't want to speak for him, but like it was, from what I've heard him say, that's sort of how it started. And then it kind of bubbled, and the script was great, and people jumped on board with it. And then when I first read it, that was the whole thing that made me really excited. Like I was excited to work with these guys in general, just knowing they do great work. But getting to be a part of something that I knew was going to have great practical effects, and it was going to have, you know, like some sort of flip of the script, and then reading what it was, the perspective, how distinct it stays that way, and then how it actually flips it again. I love that. That was what I was most excited about, to just not do, you know, the same formula over again, and not, you know, there's not a new big hook in some kind of way.
Yeah, you know, speaking of like I guess how they handled this, because I want to talk a little bit about like the kills without, you know, giving it away. You know, these are orchestrated in a way that are very clever. I mean, they get people talking. They are, you know, if you're not hooked by the story or by the way that this is shot, that's something else that viewers can kind of look forward to. What was it like, you know, during those behind the scenes like segments? Like how was the makeup? How was it like ultimately, I guess, knocking those kills out of the park? Because that's, yeah, it's wild. The juxtaposition of walking to those scenes
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to this about someone else too, about how that's kind of the difference with this film too, where most slashers are about, you know, a jump or a shock scare, because you don't know where the killer's coming from, and it's kind of the build up to wondering where that's going to happen, or where when. But with this, it's all about the buildup and the tension of knowing that it's happening because you're seeing him approach this person. So it's more about the buildup of the angst, or not the, or the, just the tension, and then jumping into those crazy practical effects scenes. Being there for those was wild. I mean, I'm a huge fan of practical effects, and growing up, it was always something I was interested in, and trying to dissect films, how they pull things off, and I'd rewatch behind the scenes and all that stuff. So being there and watching this level of stuff being made and created, and being a part of it, I'd be in there for my shot that they needed my leg in, or for my arms to pull something, and then I'd step back and they'd add more goo and a body part would come off, or like it was me basically just trying not to screw up the gag for all of the kills, just trying to be in the right movement that's going to work with everything, and everything was very like pre-planned and thought out and meticulous. So it was all about kind of playing the part that had to make that all work too, and then just standing back and being in awe of what they were putting together.
And you're a pretty physical guy. I read somewhere, I think you lost weight for a role, and then it seems like you're training an awful lot as well. Was there anything particular for this role? Because Johnny, he is extremely daunting. And so credit to you for that. But like, was there anything maybe special you did to handle that with this role?
Like at the time going into it, I think we were doing a lot of yoga, and I was just trying to be prepped for it. It was one of those, and then like on top of the just figuring out physical movements and how Johnny was going to move. But I was simultaneously shooting two other films.
Mhm.
So we did a shooting block, and then I went on to another one, and then on to another one, and I came back and did more scenes. So I was trying to just, part of the big thing for me was trying to be consistent. I just made myself a big list of notes to be like, go back and double check everything and make sure that I was consistent with it. And I was trying to get more workouts in during, but I was just so kind of overwhelmed and swamped with everything happening at the time that I really wasn't. But just doing the film itself, I mean, we did so much walking, and you're wearing the suit, and you're sweating, and like you get a workout in just doing the thing. So like I didn't really get to put in any specific hard, like distinct workout for Johnny. But I mean, it's something I would love to do, to just it's great to just be in the best shape you can to pull off these things, because it just makes it easier on you in the end. And then I injured myself in between shoots. I actually dislocated my knee. And it was a couple weeks before we had to go back and shoot. Or no, it was about a week, I think, before we had to go back and shoot the lake scene before Johnny goes down into the water. So when I did that scene, I was actually on crutches still, and I had knee braces on. I'm good now, but it was just that was a tough one, because it was me knowing how much shit they went through ahead of time, because they're pre-shoot, and then us doing this. I just didn't want to. I wanted to finish the film. I wanted to be Johnny in every moment, and it was that day was tough. But I mean, other than that, I'm like, everything was kind of prepped, and they took very good care of me too. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Had you not mentioned that, I never would have known, and kind of speaking or jumping off of that really is the Canadian wilderness. Like, this is a beautiful film. So outside of all the kills and, everything else, it's the backdrop is ultimately a character within itself. Can you talk a little bit about how working in this location, kind of how that contributed to the overall atmosphere, and like, how was that for you? Obviously you hurt yourself, but but is there anything else maybe about working in the beautiful landscape that kind of helped with the role?
yeah, I mean, like and we were pretty isolated too. Like it was Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, but then we were about almost an hour outside of that for much of it. So it's pretty far north, and just it's a beautiful area. There's mountains, there's waterfalls, rivers, lakes everywhere. So being immersed in that is just, I mean, it's a great thing right off the bat to just kind of be in that environment, and to actually see the juxtaposition of how beautiful things are. And that was a big part of the yoga kill, shooting that on the edge of a cliff, and the beautiful view that we had up there and everything, and then it goes against what you're about to see. So that was a huge part of it. I mean, and that brought challenges. It's more so for crew, just getting equipment to places and dealing with after it rained and you're trudging through mud, or dealing with the clouds of black flies and mosquitoes that just one day they were fine and the next day they were just ripping everyone apart. So it was like making sure you're layered up and got the spray on that only partially got rid of them. And just that was one of the biggest things for me. It was like some of the heat and dealing with the bugs too, but it was like I had a lot of covering on too, just in the suit. And they took really good care of me with the heat too, just had ice packs always ready and had me sitting in the shade between any take that we could and all that stuff. So there were challenges that came up with that, but I think the visuals and the juxtaposition of everything and just making you feel like you're almost in a nature documentary for parts of the film, I think it really helps and adds to what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And, again, a great film. I just can't really stress that enough, how interesting and different this was. To kind of wrap up, the film premiered to rave reviews at Sundance. The audience's reaction of your character was phenomenal. And now you have Stephen King talking about you. What is that like? Is it surreal, like to see those things, or is it
Absolutely.
did you have any inkling that this would be like a reality for you?
Not on this level. No, it's like, I mean, I thought that we'd be playing at some festivals and, maybe it would get like a limited 1 week release in some rep theaters or something like that. Just knowing that the team that we work with, I was like, they get stuff
Yeah.
done and they get stuff out there, but and no one was expecting Sundance and friggin' Stephen King and Patton Oswalt and like people Devon Sawa to be posting and saying that they love the movie and stuff. So it's crazy seeing that. And Joe Lynch was another. He did the moderator. He moderated the opening night with Chris Nash in LA. So it's like hearing people like this that you look up to and you love, and like Stephen King was the fucking like
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, and I've got like a first edition collection and then like a massive media collection of all like tons of his stuff. So when I saw him tweet that was just kind of that was the last kind of cherry on top. Just like everything else is just, I mean, it's all cherries at this point, but we never expected this. Like it's been crazy, and we're just kind of on the ride and hoping it gets out to as many people who want to see it. And if something else comes out of it, then great.
Yeah, with the Stephen King, I especially liked that he mentioned you. So not just the film, but he mentioned Johnny. And I thought your post is like really, really, really cool, because it's like, this is my shit. Like this is what I always look for. And here he is talking about me in your Stephen King shirt. It was very cool, man. But
Yeah, it was that was a weird full circle moment. I was texting with my friend and he's just like, yeah, man. He's like, think about that. This guy's been entertaining you for your life, and then the flip side is like he just watched something you entertained him for a change. I'm just kind of like, that alone is just crazy to think about. But yeah, it's wild.
I get that feeling too whenever like I get scheduled for like an interview with someone like Joe Lynch or Adam Green. I'm like, I have the entire guy's catalog, right behind me. It's nuts, like these guys, like yeah, keep me entertained for a living, and here I am on their schedule. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy your films. I'm excited to kind of dig into your filmography, if you will. And I want to say that I think Johnny, definitely has potential. People are already talking sequels or prequels, and it is safe to say that he is I maybe not an icon, but he's definitely in the conversation. Has there been any discussion of that, or is there any exploration, if you will, for Johnny's story?
I think there definitely is. Like the original idea, I think was kind of, it was sort of a film like Halloween, like the original Halloween. It wasn't supposed to continue and have, just the whole thing is like he's still out there. It's that's the. But I mean, when people like something and if there's a demand for it and they want to see more of it, and if there's a great idea to explore, which I think there's a bunch of avenues you can explore with this, considering it does feel like it's already like the third entry, and
Yeah.
you could go to the beginning and show that, or you could move on afterwards. And there's multiple different ideas I know floating around. So I'm just excited to be a part of it, and I'll be back 100% if they want me for it. And yeah, just looking forward to. I hope there is. I hope we get a chance to do that, because like you said, I'm like saying that Johnny's an icon and stuff. I'm like, that just kind of blows my mind too. And I'm like, that you only kind of really earn that if you're around for a while, and if people keep coming back and watching it and stuff like that, which like the greats, all the classic characters that we love, that's why they've stuck around, right? So it's just nice being mentioned even in a sentence with any
Yeah.
of that stuff. So
Well, it definitely turned it on its head, man. And it was a great film, great performance. And here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing, and you are doing just fine. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to the next one. And yeah, that's really all I got. Thank you so much.
thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course,
Cheers.
man.